Adding text to your edits in DaVinci Resolve 20 just got a lot easier with the MultiText tool. Let me start off by showing you the problem that it solves. So here we've just got a simple timeline and we've got these text boxes on it. At the minute, if you want to have multiple pieces of text that you can move around separately or that you want to overlay like this, so if I just play this back, it says, "Welcome to DaVinci Dojo, the best Resolve tutorials on YouTube, subscribe today." Each one of those things is a separate text plus box. That means we need these 3 separate video tracks just to accomplish this very simple thing. Also, if we wanted to put a background behind one of these text blocks, we could come up to the effects, come to generators, and then we could grab a solid color, bring that underneath it, maybe open up the inspector, change that solid color, and then maybe if we wanted it to be semi-opaque, we'd have to come into the settings, come down to the composite section and reduce the opacity. So that's a lot of steps just to accomplish quite a simple thing. And that's one of the things that the MultiText tool is going to make so much easier. Let me show you how to use it. First of all, I've got this MultiText clip here, and I'm just going to quickly show you that it's very easy just with one single clip to do things like add these colored backgrounds. I'm going to show you how to do all of that. Open up the effects, come to titles, and now we've got this new MultiText title. And just drag that down onto your timeline. Click on the MultiText clip, make sure your inspector's open, and if you want to see more of this, you can click this button to expand it down. Make sure you're on the Titles tab. This is going to give you access to all of the properties of this MultiText clip. So let's go and close the effects just to give us a bit more space on the screen. And let's go and replicate what we had happening here. The first bit of text that comes on screen is this "Welcome to DaVinci Dojo." So we'll copy that and come back to the MultiText tool. Now I'm going to go through all of these things in a lot more detail in a second, but let me just go and replicate this to show you how easy it is. Click add the second piece of text, click add. I'm doing this really quickly, but I'm going to show you everything in a second. And now, just in a single clip, we've got these 3 lines of text. We haven't had to go and add loads of new video tracks, complicating and cluttering up our timeline. This is so much easier. But what if we wanted each line of that text in the MultiText tool to come on separately, one after the other, like we had in the multiple text plus version? I'll show you how to do that later in this video. Let me show you some of the really useful things about the MultiText tool. So the first thing we've got is this text list area, and this shows you all of the individual pieces of text that you've added inside this single MultiText clip. Each of these text list items have a name. At the minute, they're just set to text 1, 2, and 3. But if you want to, you can rename these individual text items. I'll just rename that to sub. And if you've got lots of these, that can help you keep track of things. And it also changes the items down here. You can see that this has now changed to sub, just for extra security about the item that you're changing. You can also reorder the items as they appear in this text list by dragging them up and down. So in this case, probably makes more sense to have these in the order that they're being displayed on screen. Welcome to DaVinci Dojo, best Resolve tutorials on YouTube, subscribe today, because that's the logical order that our brain is thinking about them in. You can also toggle whether these items are visible or not. So let's take this middle one and I'm going to uncheck this checkbox, and you can see on the screen when I do that it disappears from view, and we can re-enable the visibility by clicking it again. If you don't want to accidentally make changes to any of these text items, click the little padlock, turns white, and now I can't go and change any of the text, can't change the font, can't change the size. That text item is now locked, which is a great little thing if you've got a complicated setup. You don't want to accidentally be changing the size on something and then realize you've messed everything up. And click the padlock again to unlock it and re-enable editing. These icons tell you what the layout type of each of these text list items are. We'll get to layout types in just a second. If you click this icon, it's going to reset that text list item. It's also going to clear the text. Watch what happens when I click this. All of the properties get reset, including any name and including any text that we'd added. I'm just going to hit Ctrl-Z to undo that. If you want to delete one of these text items, just hit the little trash can, click that, and that item gets deleted. And I'm going to undo that to bring it back. We've also got these tabs, which we'll be looking at in a minute. But if I go and select the subscribe today that we've given the sub name and change over to one of these, you can see that it's telling us that we're on this named sub layer. If I switch over to here, it just says text 2. So that's another benefit of giving your items custom names. So let's go and take a look at some of these items in this text section. We've got the text that we want to display, and if you want to, you can make this multi-line. We can change the font and the font weight. We can change the font size. We can change the font color. We can change the tracking. This is the space between individual characters. Expand down the paragraph section to take control of things like the alignment, the justification if you've got multiple lines, and the line spacing won't do anything if you've got a single line of text, but if I just add a few more, this alters the space between each separate line of text within a single text list item. We've also got some advanced controls down here. In most normal cases, you're not going to have to change any of these things. And we've also got this merge section, which allows you to choose different modes. For most normal use cases, you probably won't have to use these sections for 99.9% of the time. But it's great that we've got them if we need them. Let's move on to this layout tab. And as its name suggests, this is all to do with how this particular text item gets laid out. And you can change this for each of these text list items separately. So there's a lot of control here. The most common ones you're probably going to use are the center X and center Y. If I just hold down my mouse button and drag to the left or the right, this is going to move the X position on the screen. And if I do the same for the Y position, we can move it up and down. And we can also adjust the size of that. So this is different to adjusting the text size in here. This is more to do with the layout. Most of the time, you're probably going to be able to just leave that as it is and use the text size control in the text section. But because these things are animatable with keyframes, you might want to keyframe this size property. Open up the rotation section, and this gives you 3D controls for each individual text item. So you can flip things around the X-axis, double click to reset, or the Y-axis. You can use this to get a 3D effect. I'm going to show you later how you can actually animate that to get 3D spinning animated text. Let's move on to the shading tab. Once again, we get shading controls for each of these separate things. The fill color here is the same color. If I just change this to yellow, that we get in the text section. You can see here it's changed to yellow. So whatever we set here, let's change it to red, will be mirrored in the text fill section. However, on the shading section, we get a couple of extra controls. We've got these red, green, and blue controls. We've got this alpha control, and we've also got this opacity control. So if you want to make this text partly see-through, you can use the opacity setting in the shading tab. Let's open up the softness section, and this allows you to just soften off the text and basically make it look a little bit blurry. If you want to create more of a soft effect, you can change the X and Y softness positions independently. Just reset those. We've also got this glow setting, and if we increase that, we can make the text appear to glow. We can also blend between the non-soft effect and the soft effect just to fine-tune things a little bit. If you come over here to this drop-down menu and choose Fusion Overlay, you can come up to this little circle and you can actually drag around individual text item sections. And all this is doing, if we switch to the Layout tab, is moving the center X and center Y position here. You can turn off this layout by clicking it. Back to the shading section. To make more space, you can collapse these things up. Let's expand that outline section. Outlines are disabled by default. To enable them, click the Enable checkbox. You can select an outline color. Let's just go with white. And now on the text, we get this outline. You can change the outline opacity just to soften it off a bit. And you can change the outline thickness. You can also change the join styles, which affects how the joins of the outline look. You've also got a miter limit, which helps you control those join points, and you can choose a line style such as dashes or dots. And when you're using these, you might want to reduce the thickness so you can actually get a decent looking effect. And you can also use dash dot and dash dot dot. Just switch it back to dash. We've also got a separate softness control here that just affects the outline. So if we want to make this outline a bit softer, we can do that. We'll give it a bit of a glow and then blend it to reduce the effect a bit. We can collapse these sections up. And finally, we've got this shadow section. You can use this to create a drop shadow effect. Let's go and enable that. We'll just choose a different color so we can see what's happening. Say yellow. The position controls choose what angle that drop shadow is going to appear. And you can also increase the softness of that drop shadow or make it really tight and almost like a duplicate of the original text. So that's looking pretty hideous now. Remember earlier how we had to create a new solid color just to add a background to some text? Let me show you how to do that with the MultiText tool. To do that, we need to switch over to the Page tab. And this is a very simple section. First thing we need to do is select a color. So let's go and select something even more hideous. And you can see straight away that we've added a colored background to our text. You can use the alpha slider to make this more or less transparent or opaque. You can click on the color and maybe you want to soften that a bit and bring the darkness down. Or if you want to, you can just set this to black to create a bit more of a subtle background. Let's move on next to this image tab. And this is more of an advanced section, so you probably won't have to use this hardly ever. I won't go into this section in any detail, but there is one setting in there that we'll use when we come to animate things in just a second. Let's come back to the text section, and you can see we've got 3 boxes here, and these are 3 different layout types we can use when we add text. Currently, in the list of text items, we've only got this symbol. That means each of these 3 items is using the point layout type. The point layout type is a very simple layout type. It just specifies the point on the screen where you want to have that text appear. And the actual positioning of where that text appears is also influenced by things such as the alignment settings. Let me show you the other 2 layout types. First of all, if you want to change the layout type of an existing item, you can come over to the layout section and choose between point, text box or circle. But let's go and add a brand new text item, this time using the text box layout type. Just going to click this button and we get our new text list item. We'll add some text just so we can see what's happening, and maybe we're going to change the color and maybe move it around a little bit. We know that this hello there text list item is a text box layout because of this symbol here. You can see it's different from the other ones. And at first glance, everything looks pretty similar here. We'll come back to this list and we'll turn on the Fusion overlay. And when we do that, if I just switch between a point layout, we just get this circle with these 2 arrows where we can either move them up or down or drag this little box in the middle to move them around. But for a text box layout, we also get this green box. And this green box is the limit of where the text will appear. So if I just start typing a few things, watch what happens. We get text wrapping. We can still move things around by moving this middle box, but the text now is constrained to this green bounding box. That means we also now get word wrapping in DaVinci Resolve, which is really nice, and it's a shame it took to version 20 to get here, but DaVinci Resolve is always being improved all the time, so I'm just happy we've got it now. So with this Fusion overlay enabled, we can drag the green box to change the size of this text box layout. If we make it wider, then the text fills up the horizontal space, and if we make it narrower, then the text flows down onto multiple rows. Instead of dragging this green box, you can come over to the Layout tab, and notice now that we've got a few additional properties in the Layout section. We've got the width property, and if I drag this left and right, you can see on the screen it's doing the exact same thing as we were doing using the green box overlay, and also the height changes the height of the box. Watch what happens if I make the width of the box too narrow. And just to make sure that you can see everything, I'm going to turn off these other text items. So even though we've got this box here, the text is popping outside of this box. If that's not what you want to happen, you can check the clip to text box checkbox. Watch what happens when I tick this. We get these 2 symbols telling us that we've got overflow at the top and the bottom, but the text is now limited to inside that box. And if we come back to the text section, we can increase the size of the font, or we can decrease the size of the font to get it to fit in that box. Coming back to the Layout tab, we've also got the Wrap to Text Box option. I'm going to untick that and untick this, and now the text wrapping no longer takes place. The size slider now does make a bit more of a difference because it's altering the total relative size of that box. So if you've got the size and width dialed in exactly, rather than changing these two things, you could just change the size slider to fine-tune things, or again use it for animations. Most of the time, if you are using this text box layout option, you're probably going to want either one or both of these things checked. Otherwise, you might as well just use a normal point layout. Switching back to the text section, we've still got things like the alignment and justification, but we've also got this scroll section. I'm going to expand that down. By default, it's set to still. If I click on roll, we now get this extra scroll position. And if I move this up and down or left and right, it allows us to move the text, and you can animate this property so you can get animated text appearing on screen. We've also got this crawl option, and this animates the text from left to right rather than from top to bottom. I'll show you how to use this in just a second, but to disable it, you can just click back on still. The third type of layout is this circle layout type. Let's go and add a new text box, and I'll just hide previous one. And you can see at the top, this is a circular layout. So it's going to add the text around a circular point. We'll come over to the layout section, and the size and width are probably going to be the most useful controls that you'll start using. You've also got this center control. And as before, if you've got the Fusion layout turned on, you can drag this center point around. Let's go and duplicate this by right-clicking and choosing Duplicate. Come back to the text item, and let's change the text to enter the. Come back to the layout section and alter the Y property to move this down. And then we could go and rotate that and try and line it up. I'm going to hit Ctrl Z to reset the Y position, and instead open up rotation and change this Z value. And this is going to rotate that text around like that. And of course, we could change the colors to make things stand out. We use these branded colors. As with other types of clips, you've got the main settings for everything inside that clip, and you can use these settings to zoom things in and out. Notice that because we've got this background enabled, it's also going to change the size of that. But we could come back to title and disable the page background by just changing the opacity to 0. Now we can zoom the entire clip in and out, or move the position around as we want, and we could go and add a nice little logo in the center there if we wanted to. Okay, let me show you some cool things that you can do with this. We'll start off by having that option where we can reveal each line of text separately. Just going to duplicate this entire clip by holding down Alt and dragging it across. We'll come back to title, just going to delete these, re-enable these, and we'll change this back to point layout. We'll come to settings, and we'll click here to reset the transform. Now I could go and make this look nicer, but I'm just going to leave it for the moment. Let's come back to the title, and the basic premise here is that we can animate whether or not these text layers are shown or visible. So we're going to start off with all of these invisible. We'll come to the start of this clip, and then we'll click on this icon here to enable keyframes. What this is going to do is it's going to enable us to keyframe changes to these properties in the text list. So we start off with nothing visible, and then say a little bit into this text clip, we want the first line to be visible. Check that. And then a little bit later, we want the next line to become visible. Check that. And then here, we want this final thing to become visible. Check that. And watch what happens when I play this back. We've got them in the wrong order, but you can see that it's really quick now to have multiple lines of text come onto the screen without having to do this kind of thing where we've got 3 separate text boxes staggered. Let me show you next how to create that spinning 3D text effect. I'm going to drag a brand new MultiText instance onto the timeline. We'll enter some text. We're going to position the playhead at the start of this MultiText clip. We're going to come over to layout, we're going to come down to rotation, and then we're going to animate this Y property. Just going to double click the Y to reset it, and click here to add a keyframe. We'll come to the end of the clip, and then we'll change the value of this Y property. If we want it to do one complete loop, we change this to a value of about 360. If we want it to do multiple loops, we can increase this value. Okay, watch what happens when I play the clip back. We now have this 3D spinning text effect. It kind of looks a bit digital and a little bit too crisp in my opinion. We can fix that by coming over to the settings page and checking this motion blur option. You can set a quality here, and if you set this too high, it's going to slow things down. I'm just going to leave it at the default 2, and watch what happens when I play it back now. We have a little bit of a blur effect as this thing is animating, which just makes it look a lot more pleasant. Okay, let's go and animate that scrolling effect. We'll grab a new multi-text instance, maybe make it a little bit longer, close the effects, and we'll add some text. Because we've added this as a point text, you can see everything's scrolling off. We'll fix that in a minute. We'll come over to layout, and we'll change this from point to text box. We'll come back to text, and then we'll open up the scroll section as we did before. And we're going to choose roll because we want it to scroll from the top to the bottom. Before I do that, I'm just going to fix up the properties of these things. I'm going to increase the width of the box. I'm going to drag this down, increase the size a bit more. And I'm also going to rotate this item in 3D space. To do that, we'll come back to layout, come to rotation, and we're going to change the X value here. And just for fun, instead of this video clip, we'll come over to effects, we'll choose generators, we'll choose star field, add that underneath, and you can see where this is going. Click on multi-text in the text section, set this beginning scroll position. Let's set it there. Make sure that playhead is at the start of this clip. Click this box to set a keyframe, move the playhead, and then adjust this scroll position, and then play this back and watch what happens. Please subscribe to DaVinci Dojo, I'd really appreciate that for more DaVinci Resolve goodness in the future. I'm Jason Roberts. Watch this video next, I think you'll really like it, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.